Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As folks are logging on, we have the logos of all of the manufacturers and producers, almost 100% here in Seattle, who are part of our Seattle Good Business Network, Seattle Made, and Northwest Zone communities, who are making PPE. I don't have in the upcoming webinar, but we'll add when we send out notes after that. We have a mask marketplace on our site where you can purchase masks and PPE from all these folks. We also have a whole section of distillers and others who have pivoted to make hand sanitizer and other fantastic products. Good morning to you all. I am Erin Adams. I am the Executive Director of Seattle Good Business Network. We are a nonprofit organization since 2010 with a mission to connect and inspire people to buy, produce, and invest locally so that everyone has a meaningful stake in the local economy. In other words, we practice grassroots economic development with a commitment to building an economy that is inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable. In 2015, based on community need and inspired by what we saw happening in other cities around the country, we launched Seattle Made as a collaborative initiative to grow and support our urban manufacturing economy, connecting producers to resources and to each other to make it in Seattle by sharing infrastructure, materials, and expertise. And might I add, making it in a city as expensive as Seattle was difficult enough pre-COVID. The need to collaborate and support each other has never been more important than now. Seattle Made has 600 member businesses now. They make everything from beer to bow ties to biodiesel, chocolate, spirits, apparel, bikes, and just about everything in between, and all within Seattle city limits. The membership is about 70% owned by women and people of color. Member businesses, I should say. Northwest Zone, which you'll hear much more about momentarily, is an initiative also grounded in an ethos of collaboration, seeking to connect, support, and grow the sewn trades industry in Seattle and across the Pacific Northwest region. Because we find ourselves at the crossroads of urban manufacturing, small batch, and industrial sewing, when COVID hit, we were inundated with inquiries about who was producing PPE and where to source materials, sometimes even for other areas of the country who were experiencing overwhelming need. This moment has demonstrated what we've always known, that local manufacturing capacity is key to a resilient local economy, to meeting our region's needs, and to creating durable and meaningful jobs. And this is why we wanted to have this panel, share these stories now, and shine a light on what we have that we don't want to lose, and what we hope to build and create for a more equitable future. Today, I am delighted to be joined by 4 panelists. They are Ming Ming Tang Edelman. Ming Ming is a practicing clinical pharmacist. She is the Executive Director of Refugee Artisan Initiative, a Seattle Made member, and a longtime collaborator with Northwest Zone. And you will hear much more throughout the webinar about the ways in which we are collaborating with Refugee Artisan and Ming Ming. Rob Clarkson is with Common Fibers. Rob serves as VP of Sales for Common Fibers, a Seattle Made member, I think just since last year, specializing in carbon fiber composite fabrication using advanced technology, and one of our businesses that pivoted to create PPE when they saw the need. Tucker Koss has been working at Koss Tailored for 7 years. During that time, he has spent time in nearly every part of the organization. He is currently the GM resident, where he is utilized by the general manager in several different roles, such as internal and external coaching, leading cross-functional improvement activities, working with the apprenticeships, which you will hear much more about today, and careers team, and is Koss Tailor's ambassador to the community. And last but certainly not least, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the panelists will be first up, my dear friend, Deborah Vandermar. Deborah Vandermar works as a consultant for the Industrial Sewing and Innovation Center in Detroit, advising them on training and apprenticeship in the sewn trades. Deborah guided the development of skills, standards, and curriculum for ISAC's Department of Labor Certified National Apprenticeship for Industrial Sewing Machine Operator. She draws on 35 years of sewn trades experience as a sewing machine operator, technical designer, engineer, and production manager for firms such as Fritzy of California, JH Collectibles, Nordstrom, and Ex Officio. She developed her curriculum writing skills as a college instructor, textbook author. I believe she's working on a version right now for textbook. Textbook author, online course developer, and vocational sewing teacher in marginalized communities. She is dedicated to the continued growth of the sewn trade sector based on innovation, excellence, inclusion, and sustainable practices. Deborah, the presentation is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Resilience is a huge word right now. Since COVID-19 broke out, the sewn trades industry that serves consumer markets has been totally ripped apart. Trade journals have been documenting the colossal tragedy of canceled orders on the supply side in places like Bangladesh and in Indonesia and in China. And malls, retail stores, and brands are closing one after another and being purchased for a song as they fall into bankruptcy. The word resilience is everywhere in the trade press. Resilience was a focus of a recent McKinsey-sponsored webinar, which listed some of the top trends in strategies for an industry that's trying to survive. Among others, they mentioned regionalization, collaboration within the supply chain, and upskilling the workforce. Seattle Good has been an advocate of these survival skills since before the pandemic. Regionalization and collaboration, as you just heard in the introduction, are embedded in Seattle Good's DNA, right from its inception. But skills building became a new initiative of Seattle Good in 2015. Slide. So, in 2015, Seattle Made recognized that its members were having problems filling jobs in sewn goods manufacturing. They said, we cannot find skilled workers in the general population. We can't afford training in-house. Workers are slow. They make mistakes while they're learning. Skilled workers who are called on to train new workers are unproductive while they're teaching. Trainees have to arrive work ready. And if we're going to have to pay a mandated minimum wage, we expect top skill level. We're just not getting it, and we cannot compete. Slide. So in 2016, Seattle Made hosted a series called What's Here, What's Near, What's Not for the sewn goods industry stakeholders. And that's when I became involved in this project. We gathered information, we did more research, we analyzed it, we held focus groups on specific topics, and many issues were made clear about the supply chain, about high rents and financing. But the one need that everybody agreed on was we need more skilled workers. So during the same time period, slide please. During the same time period, Muse's Conscious Fashion Studio on First Avenue was offering industrial sewing classes. Most of their students were referred from settlement agencies for immigrants and refugees, such as REWA, which is the Refugee Women's Alliance. Muse's was not only training sewing machine operators, but also looking for job opportunities for the graduates. So Seattle Made businesses needed skilled labor, Muse's was training. The two organizations started working together. Seattle Made continued to hold, slide please. Seattle Made continued to hold stakeholder meetings and gather data and seek solutions. They funded several experimental projects through Muses to find out what steps were effective in building a skilled workforce. So they purchased new professional machines and industrial tools from Muses. They funded an experimental internship with outdoor research. They funded a pilot project to match freelance sewers to jobs. Slide. It was through these projects that Seattle Made heard the voices of potential industrial sewing machine operators. they were learning, or we were learning together, that although potential workers were keen to get training, when it came to accepting actual job offers, they weren't able to say yes. This is the case with many marginalized people. Just having skills isn't enough. There are chronic issues that low-income and marginalized people have to deal with: affordable transportation, available affordable childcare, flexible hours, the necessity of a living wage. We needed to find a training solution that worked for employers and workers. Slide, please. It was through these, as part of my work with Seattle Made in Muses, I started to research other industrial sewing training programs. And in 2017, I heard about the Industrial Sewing and Innovation Center, ISAC, in Detroit. ISAC had been on a similar journey, trying to build a skilled workforce in the sewn trades. They had concluded through their research that formal apprenticeship programs through Department of Labor were a way of satisfying the needs of multiple stakeholders. Employers are eligible for federal funding through apprenticeship programs to offset the cost of on-the-job training and related technical instruction. Apprentices tend to be model employees with low turnover, high absenteeism, and they advance rapidly. And employers also benefit from increased professionalism, efficiency, and quality. Slide, please. Apprenticeship supports workers as well. Workforce development agencies are able to get federal funding so that they can support on-the-job training. Employers can get federal funding for on-the-job training and related technical instruction. I beg your pardon. Workforce development agencies can support apprentices through recruitment and screening, support services. They can get transportation vouchers and provide childcare solutions and do case management. And apprentices are hired under contract, so they know what they're getting into. They know their starting pay. They know they'll get merit-based increases. They know how long they'll be working. And at the end, they may have a choice to get a job. And especially through U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeships, apprentices must be hired with demographically defined criteria. So it's very fair. And in addition to that, apprentices earn a journey worker card upon completion. That promotes career building and it promotes professionalism. And in addition, especially important for marginalized people, it's a huge self-esteem builder to go through the program, to finish it, and end up with a journey worker card that they can show to anybody. And it's nobody's opinion whether or not they did a good job or not. They're certified through a standard process. And it's amazing to see when people earn that card, what happens to them. So please, new slide. So ISAC's first apprenticeship program was at the Empowerment Plan in Detroit, which is a nonprofit organization that hires homeless people. And the entire place is 90% people who come out of homeless shelters. By the way, Empowerment Plan was closed for COVID, but reopened partially to do PPE. And the ISAC factory in Detroit opened during the beginning of the COVID crisis and pivoted. They were going to make consumer products and are doing PPE now. And as soon as things settle down, we'll start their own U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship program. And ISAC supports vocational training, not necessarily through the DOL, but other kinds of vocational training based on their program in North Carolina and Tennessee, and we're working on other projects in other states as well. Next slide, please. And one of those places is right here in Washington State. Cost-Tailored will be the first apprenticeship site under Washington State Labor and Industries apprenticeship system. We went together and pitched to get authorization to have an apprenticeship program at CAS, and then COVID hit. So I'm sure CAS will tell you about their journey with PPE and a little bit of apprenticeship. So I'm going to hand it over to Tucker. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Deb. Yeah, so my name is Tucker, and I work here at Cost Tailored. What we do here is we have historically made a lot of furniture and for the commercial and aerospace industries. Yeah, it's been a wild time for us, but thankfully because of really strong leadership and really clear beliefs of who we are and what we do, we've been able to be resilient ourselves. So I kind of wanted to start off our PPE story by talking about kind of how we got into this and how we were really fortunate to be talking about COVID months before it started really impacting things and closing down our economy. So I remember as a part of our president's quarterly forecast in January, I remember he was talking about this COVID thing that sounded like this thing that was so far away, not ever going to impact us. And so we were talking about making plans even at that point. And everyone kind of in our leadership team thought he was a little crazy because it did seem something so far-fetched. But that really did help us stay prepared and come up with a plan before we kind of needed to make a plan more concretely. So I'm actually going to, we use here at Cost Tailored, if you ever tour us, we have a ton of whiteboards all around our company. Like I'm talking probably close to 50. So I'm very much used to writing on whiteboards. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for this presentation. So on March 18th, our president, who's also my father, he reached out to the Providence leadership team via text to kind of suggest, hey, you guys have a need. You announced this 100 million mask challenge. We think we can be a part of the solution. Please partner with us. And if you don't partner with us, we'll find someone else that will. We're dedicated to helping this quote unquote war effort. So part of that text also is because we've been doing tours at our company for close to, I'd say, at this point, about 15 years. And in the early days, Providence was a big tour participant. So we've had most of the leadership team through on tours multiple times. So relationships are powerful, as you probably know. So that was Wednesday, March 18th. And then March 19th, the following day, we were already prototyping some PPE. So we're looking at shields and also face masks made out of kind of that Medline equipment that they use for surgical surgeries and coverings and that sort of thing. So we were already making prototypes in our product development department. And by the end of the day, we already had a cut file and standard work on how to build this, which is ridiculously fast, I would say. And then that night, we sent our drawings over across the Atlantic to this little country called Holland or the Netherlands. And we have some friends over there that they do very similar things to us, designer furniture over in Europe. And they basically took our drawings and improved them while we were sleeping, because they're about 10 hours time difference. And by the time we woke up the next morning, we had received on March 20th, we received some prototypes of ways that we can actually do it in a more efficient way. So they improved our methods. So that day we actually used overtime, so paying even extra for labor to actually start producing this with just kind of a verbal agreement with Providence that this was gonna happen. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then on Saturday we also, again, overtime on the 21st. I was on a little road trip with my family, so I wasn't involved in this, but we actually were using volunteers and also cost employees to make some PPE our first run of production. And so, yeah, that was kind of the early days of this. And we've been covered on a few different news outlets, which is very humbling. And the big question is how did COS make this switch over to PPE so quickly in the matter of a few days? And really what this comes down to is really, I think, three things. So the first thing is our kind of, we call it our manifesto, is it's basically our public declaration of who we want to be as an organization. It's all about this three-word phrase of shine our light. So what that means is essentially we want to be a place where we are putting light on the good things and the bad things to bring out the truth, so that it sets us free from deception, lies, and really just we want to know the truth. And apprenticeships is a good example of shining your light, where we can actually be a difference maker in the community by offering apprenticeships to people, especially immigrants and refugees to this country. And shining, I cannot think of a better way to shine our light than make PPE for the healthcare system that was struggling mightily at the time. So one of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, he in his latest book called, I think it's called The Infinite Game, he talks a lot about this thing called existential flexibility. So organizations who are able to be resilient have this basically such a good mission statement that they're able to flex into whatever the need is. So by being people that shine light instead of people that just make some awesome, cool furniture, it gives us flexibility to really do whatever the market or whatever the world needs at that given time. We can shine our light. It's much more simple than having to, sell furniture when that might not be the best thing to sell or when that's closed down. The second piece of this is also, we have these three underlying beliefs on our manifesto called truth, bit, and pull. So truth, that's knowing and showing the truth, making truth be very evident and knowable at any given time. A good example of this is if you walked our factory, you'd see all sorts of colors, green, yellow, red, telling status of the given line, the individuals in the line, and also like even management, kind of where their truth is for that given minute or that given day. Bit, so we're not batch producers, we're bit producers. So what that means is we try to move more in the direction of one piece flow, which gives us flexibility, because if our customer goes from ordering a bunch of aerospace and furniture and then they switch to PPE, it allows us to make that switch because we don't have a lot of work in process and batches to have to change over. And we say bit because one piece flow really scares people. So this is kind of our simplification of the Toyota production system that we learned from years ago. And then the last one is pull. So pull is kind of, it means like the customer is in control of the scenario. So if that's the customer internally, that's, our upholstery team, the people that finally put everything together for our furniture team. They're the ones that are dictating the schedule, not the frame guys downstairs in the wood shop or the sewing team next door. It's really, it has to be the customer driving the demand. So because we have those three values in play, that allows us to flex. And the third point of that, kind of more of a sub point, we use this analogy of the kitchen. I misspelled kitchen, but that, I think, there we go. So kitchen analogy where we keep everything in raw materials as long as possible. And then when there's a pull, it allows us to turn that raw materials into something a little bit more tasty than just raw sugar. So the example is we have all sorts of foam and fabrics and leathers and wood next door, and we try to prolong cutting into those, because as soon as we cut into them and start making something, it can only be that one thing. So because we only have about half a day's worth of work in process or less in some areas, it allowed us to be able to switch from prototyping like new furniture into prototyping PPE with those masks and shields in the early days. I will say it was not all it was not all like love at first sight, I guess. There was definitely some growth opportunities for us. I will say that we violated all three of those principles, truth, bit, and pull, multiple times in the early days. We were so amped up on adrenaline and fear, that's my take on it, that we actually did a lot of batch producing, overproducing, pushing product onto next parts of the process. The real, if you were to draw someone's face, like working in the line, it would look a little bit like this, where it's just like extra stress, like maybe smoke coming out of the ears. It was very stressful time for them. And what we were able to do is through some coaching and some outside sets of eyes with our partners, such as actually my sister, who's a public school teacher here in the area, and also some of our friends over at Nordstrom. They were able to help us move in the direction of one-piece flow. And when we did that, our throughput went up, like I think tripled, and our joy factor I think tripled as well, I'd say. Yeah, it was good learning, because we realized that when fear is introduced into the system, it does weird things, and it makes us do very, very counterproductive maneuvers, and set up systems that really were set up to fail. And then by taking a step back and really analyzing the system, we were able to make a lot of improvements, to the point where we recently switched over from shields, which were selling really a lot early on, but then became less important, and we actually started making gowns we partnered with Isaac and a few other organizations to manufacture gowns for surgeries as well. And so we were able to kind of rinse and repeat and learn from that. And so I'm not one to say COVID has been the best thing for us, because obviously it's a tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people have died from it. But I definitely think that one of the beautiful outcomes is that it has forced us to really stick true to our values, and to really try to figure out what makes us kind of special, and how can we hopefully bless the community. And it's really strengthened those relationships with people like Deborah and others through this process. So yeah, that is all I've got. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Ming Ming, the next panelist.
Okay, now it's not me. So thank you, Tucker, for making the introduction and your wonderful presentation and the work you do at CATS. So my name is Ming Tang Edelman. I'm the Executive Director of Refugee Artists Initiative. We are a fairly new nonprofit. We started about 4 years ago. Because my own background, as Erin has mentioned, I'm a clinical pharmacist. I'm also immigrant from Taiwan. I come to the state when in 1985, and have a long career as a clinical pharmacist, but always loved fashion, and so took classes and always loved working with refugee and fashion. So that's how Refugee Artists Initiative started, to combine my passion in fashion and my compassion as a clinical pharmacist. Next. So what's our mission is, we are here to transform the lives of refugee and immigrant women by providing with sustainable work in sewing and handcrafting goods. Next. So we started because, like what Deborah mentioned, there's so many barriers with these group of women: transportation, healthcare, language, and even disability. Our first artisan actually is from Bhutan, contracted polio. So, taking long buses to work, standing all day long, or just not going to work. So our model is a home-based program. We provide them with the basic training, tools and materials they need, so they can do it at their home, at their own convenience and time. And we pay them living fair wages and bring the products they made to the market. Next. So these are some of the things we do. We're actually upcyclers. So all our products are made from donated fabric right here in Seattle. we have a donation dates, and we also are looking with partners around the city, looking at the materials. So we design products based on what's available. Here are some examples. Fabric, jewelry, kitchen, and home accessories, all made from fabric. And so prevent them from going to the landfill and give them a second chance of new life. Next. So you can find our products online, events, and stores. We are heavy with museums, and with COVID right now, Metropolitan Market is our big client. And along with Bill and Melinda Gates, we do the events with them annually. Next. So what happened is that I realized very quickly, next slide please, that our small line of products will not be able to be sustainable, providing more opportunities for these women. So in the summer of 2018, we started to offer what we call a small batch production partners. We basically sent out an ad, and actually in Seattle, May, we sent out to all the members saying, hey, we are a nonprofit with these women with sewing and jewelry making skills. Do you have things you need to be made? Maybe we can help you. So that's how we started with the small batch, and some of the example of our partners listed here. Next. So we have 6 artisans before COVID. They are from Burma, Morocco, Ethiopia, China, and Vietnam. And like what Deborah said, that we have partnership with these resettlement agencies, such as Refugee Women's Alliance, and we're currently another partner with Children's Home Society of Washington. They have case managers that identified these women who already have sewing and other handcrafting skills. And we work closely with these case managers and try to provide them with opportunities based on their ability, their needs. So it's all very flexible. The artisans are work as a contractors. They can decide the hours and project that fit them or not to fit them. So we try to be as flexible for the needs of our artisans as possible. Next. So we was home-based until last summer. We finally have a home. We have a business incubator space in Lake City donated to us by Children's Home Society of Washington, where we will also have a whole slew of sewing machine that donated to us through Muses as it closed its door. So it's a place for us to do demonstration training along with meeting our clients. And we currently have 3 staff. Myself is executive director. We have a program manager that manages volunteers and artisans' needs, and a sewing coordinator who does all the sewing project, and we also have a real part-time jewelry coordinator who does all our jewelry projects. Next. So when COVID hit, it really hit me hard because I'm a clinical pharmacist, and it was shocking for me to hear that our own state doesn't have enough PPE to protect people like myself. I see patients all day long, and my husband is an ICU doctor. He sees, very critical ill patient. It hit me really hard that, how can a state like Washington with so much advancement in technology that we don't have enough PPE? So the day when the governor announced that there's no school, the next day, I put out my first ever GoFundMe. I didn't know much about GoFundMe, but I was compelled to take action. So we launched the Refugees and Immigrants Make Gears Against COVID-19. And so far we have raised close to $40,000, allowed us to donate almost close to 7,000 PPE so far. So we have donated to healthcare workers, frontline workers, nursing home, correctional service, both the prisoners and officers working there, postal workers around the country, and recently, this past week, we just sent out over 500 masks to the Navajo Nation with a goal of 1,000 masks, sending to them hopefully by the end of next week. Next. So because of what we've done, people have taken notice. We get a first order actually from a national artisan group called Build a Nest. They want to make sure artisans around the globe during the pandemic still able to earn income through making masks. So they provide us an opportunity to make masks for healthcare workers in New York, along with postal workers around the country. And the city of Seattle does the same thing. They reach us, allowed us to make over 8,000 masks so they can distribute to families, individuals who can't afford masks, and along with our other partners listed here. So you might wonder, how can we make masks so quickly? Like I mentioned before, we're upcyclers. We always have fabrics. So before COVID, we have a new partner that donated to us over 100 sets of clean and used 100% cotton bed sheets. And you know, just the knowledge of that bed sheet, knowing that 100% cotton is the best materials to make masks, because you know they filter well, they're comfortable. Those stretchy materials actually not good because you know, you get big pores and not able to protect you as well. So we basically cut up sheets of these bed sheets and make them into masks overnight. So because our continued relationship with the company, we're able to continue to make a lot of PPEs. And recently we started selling our masks, both adult and kids masks, from donated fabric, both from bed sheets and just through our donations to be able to make these masks to sell at Metropolitan Market throughout Seattle. Now, as of yesterday, as an organization that really empower refugee immigrant women, we also want to take a stand against racism and want to make sure that people's voice being heard. So we just launched our Black Lives Matter mask and Vote mask yesterday, and 20% of the sale will go to support the ACLU work on supporting freedom, liberty, and justice for all. So these are some of the presses that we have received lately. We even, Seattle Times shared the step-to-step how to make the masks that we do to share with the community. We actually also sell mask kits online, so people want to make their own mask, either for themselves or to donate it to their family and friends, they can do that. And so other things we've done, including we also make face shields that we donate. And right now we're working with REI on reusable gowns. As an upcycler, you know, it also breaks my heart to know that one-time use gowns, thousands of them going to the landfill. Maybe we can be a part of the solution by making these gowns. And we are still looking for more places to use them. Currently, we identify dental offices as a good place for these reusable gowns. And any of you have some ideas who might be other distribution channels, would like to hear how we can also help other groups as well. So right now, like I mentioned, we initially have 6 artisans in the program. And during COVID, the surge of the PPE allow us to add 6 more artisans, and they are mainly, again, through our partnership with the Afghanistan case worker manager and also with the Burmese community. So we have these women that basically, most of them, this is their first paycheck in America during the pandemic. They participate in making PPE and providing much needed financial needs for their family, as many of their spouses are either Uber drivers or cleaning Amazon offices that their works have disappeared. All of a sudden, these women become caregivers of their family. So what are some of our goals? So again, you know, as a new nonprofit, we provided some basic training, but through this pandemic, it also opened our eyes that in order for these women, we need to think beyond making PPE. What are other skills that we can make them be more desirable and having more opportunities? So we believe that having a established apprenticeship program, just like when Deb mentioned, it's critical for these women to not only able to earn income, but continue to advance. For example, most of them do not know what lean manufacturing process means. They're going to make stuff from home. There must be a way we can help them to be more efficient and more effective on making products. And they're also independent contractors. We want to make sure that they have the skills to take on different projects. So I'm ending here to tell you about our future goal. We're currently working with Satsuma Uniform Designs. They are located at the Bila Academy School. We have our annex where there are sewing machines and cutting tables making school uniforms. So we want our artisans have opportunity to learn the new uniform making skill set. So they can not only learning products for our product lines, but for other partners like Satsuma Designs, and something more stable. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to share with where we are. We're hoping through learning from with other groups here that we can continue to grow and thrive. Thank you so much. And I'm going to introduce the next speaker, Rob Clarkson with Common Fiber.
Thanks, Ming. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Aaron, Deb, and Tucker as well. Thank you for sharing your story and facilitating this right now. For everybody, my name is Rob Clarkson. I'm representing Common Fibers, where I'm currently the Vice President of Sales. We are a carbon fiber manufacturer located in Georgetown, just south of the city, and we're a proud Seattle-made member. We specialize in carbon fiber composite fabrication, where we make parts and components in a low to high production capacity for numerous companies in a wide variety of industries. We serve aerospace and defense, marine, automotive, medical devices, and consumer goods, among many others. Some projects that we make include what you see here. It's a mobility scooter to help individuals get around. We make mascot heads for a university. We've made harp cases, such as this one here, to make musical equipment more lightweight. And we also do entire body kits and make full cars out of carbon fiber. We're actually making a full car right now. And we do everything in-house, from design and R&D to prototyping, such as these ski guards. We do tooling, such as these fiberglass molds in our own dedicated booth. We also do repair work, and all stages of the manufacturing process start primarily with what you see here, which is a vacuum resin infusion. One thing that makes us different is how we created and own a patent for a carbon fiber hinge. It means that you can take a flat sheet of rigid carbon fiber and you can precisely bend it where you need it to be bent. And this has allowed us to make high-end lifestyle accessories, such as a line of wallets and other consumer goods. And this is actually how we started our business with a Kickstarter campaign making wallets back in 2013. And we do it all here. This is where we work. We're a small team of about 15 or so employees. It's very much a warehouse space. It's about 7,000 to 8,000 square feet. We outfitted it with everything that we needed, and we've actually grown quite a bit since we moved in here not too long ago. Sometime in April is when I would say that we got into making PPE, specifically manufacturing face shields like this one. They are FDA compliant in accordance to the FDA emergency use authorization for use by healthcare professionals as PPE. Primarily, we wanted to make this to have great protection and to be low cost. And there were two ways that we could have gone about making this. We looked into sourcing two types of thermoplastics, PETG or PVC film. Most face shields that are currently out there are made out of PETG, and all of that was gone. We couldn't find it anywhere. And we moved forward with a design that was made from a single piece of PVC film, which we cut to provide a wraparound protection with ear hole cutouts so you can see. And it also is a standalone solution, so you can use it on your own. You can clean it using the standard materials you can clean regular face shields with. And the cinch strap that you see here as well allows for a customized fit to the wearer. All the materials that we make are sourced in the United States, and they don't cause any flammability. Most importantly, we make and distribute these at cost. to provide work for our employees and to help the community. I very much believe that we're only as healthy as our neighbors, and to date we've distributed about 2,500 of these to local businesses and people in need. And we're going to stay on this slide for the duration of the remainder of what I'm going to be talking about, just so you guys can just primarily focus on the PPE aspect. And our COVID-19 journey probably started earlier than some others, because we do have some partners in China for some materials, and we were concerned about their safety and their well-being, as well as what it would mean for certain projects manufacturing-wise. And once it hit here and Governor Inslee shut down the state, it was difficult to navigate what was going on because we ended up not having employees for about 6 weeks. And we immediately applied for the PPP loan and was granted the money, which definitely helped out and helped us during that time. As a manufacturer, it's our responsibility to bring projects to life, which is why it's really cool to work here. But it's difficult to work on these projects when we can't be here as a team for such a long time. Carbon fiber is a very labor-intensive material for those who know about it, and we were able to, fortunately, send some work home to our employees with our employees. And I know that I worked from home for about 2 months, and I spent most of my time primarily working on PPE. PPE isn't our core business, just like everybody else, we're trying to figure out how we can transition to making something like this. And we're doing it because it's just the right thing to do. We're used to, as a manufacturer, to iterate quickly, and we had our supplier connections, and we did some tests on designs within a couple of days. And we felt the one-piece design was the best way to make this shield because of a couple of advantages. One, it uses less material, and it means that it's less labor to produce it. It's easier to produce because it's so easy, and it's ultimately less cost. We have the ability to produce about 10,000 of these face shields per week. And part of why we do this so quickly is because, for one, we're built for high run production. And also, as Tucker said earlier, we were looking at our values, and we have great suppliers and dedicated employees, and everyone was willing to pitch in. It's different operating from a mindset of a company versus as an individual. And as a company, we're very fortunate to have diverse partners and be involved in many different industries. And our clients that use carbon fiber, they actually use it as part of their core business. So they actually kept putting in orders during this time. You would think that during a pandemic, a lot of orders would shut down, and we're fortunate that that hasn't really been the case for us. However, we did see a pretty large impact of the pandemic and of all the changes that were being made globally. We were having record months of revenue every single year, we were having record months of revenue this year. And in May, it stopped. It dropped to about 50% of what it could be. This year, we're probably around 75% of what we could be. And we're very much still in that transition period, trying to help our clients make their orders happen without slowing down production. And fortunately, we're able to have everybody back in the shop now where we're able to make this happen. And so that's from the company perspective, how it's not really what we're currently doing, but it's the right thing to do. And as an individual, I thought to myself, the best thing that I can do is be a facilitator of transactions. So connect people who have different resources and help indirectly make the manufacturing of PPE possible. So I found a list of every hospital and nursing home in the country and began reaching out to see how we can help. I applied to be a supplier for emergency ops centers and states. I posted in the Seattle Made community to see who was making what and letting everybody know what we were doing. One great opportunity I was able to facilitate is with another Seattle Made member who, through a variety of different individuals I was able to connect him with, is in a bid to make large amounts of hooded face shields and gowns. And in terms of being a hooded face shields, we would actually be a supplier for him to make that happen. So we're really excited to see how that continues to move along. I had people reach out to me asking for masks in the millions and trying to use my connections to make that happen. We actually began importing KN95 respirators, and we have a sea shipment of about 5,000 of them coming in any day now. And, I'm really proud to keep doing this in terms of, where we go from here and what we're going to do. We're definitely going to, as a company, continue to produce face shields for the foreseeable future. And, we just want to be able to help as much as we can. I believe I've mentioned, we've distributed about 2,500 of these to local businesses and people in need already. And in terms of all the face masks, we've been able to distribute in total combined about 4,000 articles of PPE. So we're very, very proud of that. And it's interesting to know what's going to happen. I know everybody right now is thinking, what's going to happen in 2 months? Is there going to be a second wave coming? I know I'm definitely thinking of that. And I know all of our suppliers are thinking that. And the way that I like to view it all is we're going to continue to do it because if there is a second wave, we just want to be prepared. And the best way to be prepared is to give as much as we can and to distribute as much as we can. And, that's pretty much our story and why we're going to continue to do it.
Thank you, Rob. I cannot tell you how happy it makes me to hear the stories of successful Seattle-made collaborations. It's awesome. So it's kind of the perfect segue. I guess, where do we go from here? For us as an organization, it is ongoing collaboration. Locally, we will continue to foster collaboration amongst Seattle-made members, working with Refugee Artisan Initiative in particular, who we've donated, I think, $16,000 maybe worth of machinery that came from Muses and trying to support in that way. We're also working to do grant write and, as Ming Ming said, ideally establish RAI as an apprenticeship site. Regionally, we will continue to convene with stakeholders to discover and find ways to work together with an intention of creating jobs and more local manufacturing. We continue to support efforts to educate startups about product development and ethical manufacturing practices, and we seek both funding and support for a sewn goods design incubator. Nationally, I think because we hosted the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, which is a national organization supporting urban manufacturing initiatives across the country, in cities across the country. We hosted that conference, Seattle Made did, and I think it was 2017. And I believe Deborah Vandermar presented on the work we were doing at that time with Muses and Northwest Sewn on training. And I also believe that out of that grew, or we were the first city to host a community of practice that Urban Manufacturing Alliance pulled together. And these logos on the right-hand side are ones, many of which are the organizations across the country who Northwest Sewn is in a community of practice with. And I think many of them, Deborah has probably visited or supported in their own workforce development efforts. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah, but I think that's the case. Big picture for us as an organization, we would love to see some reshoring of production. And we think this moment, if ever, this moment of economic recovery might offer that possibility. We would love to see public and private entities who currently manufacture offshore bring at least some of that back home, and in combination with some support for increased apprenticeship programs, create the workforce necessary to do those jobs. That's the kind of equitable recovery we would like to see in our region. I think that's it for us. We will keep building relationships. We will keep working on supply chain collaboration. We'll keep championing the importance of this sector, these jobs, this type of economy, and we seek partners, as I've said, I think twice now, public and private, to join us in this work. We have a member pinged me, and I just want to apologize for our first webinar ever, Zoom webinar. I got a chat from one of our members, and early Northwest Sewn, Seattle Made Northwest Sewn members, Tracy Crowder with Splash Fabric, and live and learn, when I tried to respond to her in the chat, it was advancing and forwarding slides. So I'm sorry that happened to you, Ming Ming. That's what was happening. But Tracy wanted us to give a shout out, which I'm so happy to do. That they have been paying 25 immigrant professional home stitchers here in Seattle to make masks since March 1. They've made 120,000 wow, and donated $52,000 so far to people in need from local homeless shelters, immigrant groups, the YWCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, Pickers in Yakima, the Navajo Nation. Pivoted the day after Flower and Garden Show, I don't know what that is, and hired their 3 sons to help meet the demand for the increase in orders from 6 to 10 per day to 50 to 100 per day. And that's Tracy Crowder from Splash Fabric, one of many stories of Seattle Made members and local folks. We are, what time do we have? We have 5 minutes. If anyone is interested in contacting or connecting with folks on this panel, here's their information. And I don't see questions in the Q&A, but I am a novice here on this Zoom webinar. I'm not too proud to admit. I do know, though, you know, Rob touched on it, and I welcome any other panelists to speak to what they think comes next. Who has some visibility? You know, Deborah, do you have some visibility or thoughts about what comes next for this sector, not just here, but nationally? And I'm going to move on to the slide of all our makers again, because it's a beautiful thing.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
The Urban Manufacturers Alliance, who you mentioned, just has been working on specifically about race and social justice issues in COVID as we come forward. And they had a webinar. And in your follow-up email, Erin, I know you're going to put the link for this in. They just have been formulating lessons learned during the crisis, but also from Black Lives Matter issues. And they had 7 points for moving forward. One is to be ready to take on the challenge and to focus on coordination between industry and community. The other is to help the most vulnerable, to bring the most vulnerable forward, and to know that keeping an eye on the long run, not just on the immediate. This came out in the themes of everybody talking, to look at the long run. What are the things we're going to do now, going to do to affect the future, and to focus on standards, things like workforce organization, good pay, safe working conditions, not let those things go down, and really focusing on organizational learning, that diversity. And this is where kind of keeping our workforce as diverse as it can be, because organizational learning will help us move forward. Not sage on the stage, big thinking, big corporate thinking is going to solve everything, or even big government, but organizational learning. And it's only going to be rich and authentic with diversity. And then we have a unique opportunity to change the perception of manufacturing during this time. And it's already happening, but we have the opportunity to build on that. So that's from the UMA, our wonderful collaborator in all of this.